heartfelt welcome to you. If you are returning, welcome back. And if you are new, welcome, welcome. Today, I am so excited to have with us Miss Julia Nepini. She is our guest today. And she, first of all, loves Heartfelt Awakening Radio. Thank you so much. And wanted to share her personal journey because, you know, as we know, we are all about transformational journeys to spirit. So from the physical to the non-physical. And darling, from, right now having a counseling practice, let's rewind, right? Let's do a quick rewind to your journey of how did, surviving, going through divorce with little ones, and tell me what was going on with your mind, body, and spirit during that time.
Ooh, what a great way to put that. So I'll start with, I kind of have always in my life been the go-to for people. So therapy was just a natural progression. So I was already a therapist when I went through this transformation in my own life and had done a lot of work helping people in their own relationships, and chose social work versus mental health specifically because I was all about person and environment and understanding relationships. So I was 30 when I had the kind of eye-opening experience that I was extremely unhappy and that I needed to make some changes in my life. My daughter was 2 years old at the time, and it was definitely a shock for my ex-husband. And so it unintentionally shifted my entire career path. So even though I stayed obviously in the mental health field, going through that experience, mediating the divorce, and then having to actively co-parent on a daily basis, opened my eyes to this world of forensic social work that I had no idea existed. So it encompasses divorce mediation, parenting coordination, being a guardian ad litem. So it's basically the integration between mental health and the family law system.
I've worked with a lot of social workers and the different paths that they can take. And a lot of the paths that I was on with social workers was rehab, like becoming disabled, losing your job, being retrained for rehab, becoming disabled. But forensic social work, I have never heard about this. So is this something available for people to look into, to find one? Tell me about this. Tell me about this.
So little did I know, this is like within the last 5 years, I discovered that not only can lawyers mediate divorces, but licensed mental health practitioners can also mediate divorces. And so I took a mediation training. And then from there, I learned about parenting coordination. So that is basically a role where you are working with parents who are post-separation or divorce, who are usually high conflict. So without this third party, they'd be in and out of court frequently. And you are the identified person to work with them post-divorce. So they've created or already submitted their mediation agreement, separation agreement, but things come up all the time. You can't anticipate everything that's going to transpire with your children. And so when things come up, they have us as that point person, and we can listen to both sides and help them come to agreements, work towards compromise. And if they're unable to do so, we have binding authority to make decisions on their behalf. And it prevents them from being in and out of court unnecessarily, minimizing the impact of conflict on their children. And even though the children are not usually involved in the process, I get to know them through their parents, and they're at the forefront of all of our minds, and I can help the parents maintain that focus when it's difficult.
Thank you for the work you do. Okay, so I know personally several social workers where they require a master's degree for a job that pays about $35,000 to $40,000 a year. So this imbalance here and how much this work is needed. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Wow. So this is fantastic. I'm learning something. And I know it's like my mind is going, I need to tell her, I need to tell her, I need to tell her. It's like, dang.
Yeah, this is a thing. So I'm here to spread the word. And for social workers or mental health practitioners that are hearing this and thinking, I'm interested in this, what are the requirements? It is very doable. We already have the skill set. So it's just broadening that scope. And you cannot charge insurance for these services. So you are setting your own hourly rate. So it has enabled me to kind of break through that glass ceiling and this myth that we have when we're in graduate school about how social workers can never earn a good living. So there is a nice balance there between, obviously I take cases at a lower rate if I understand the circumstances that they're in. I don't want the cost to prevent or preclude anyone from the service. And I'm in a very low income area, but you have the ability to earn more than you would even providing counseling. So, and you're collaborating with attorneys and learning a lot about family law, which fascinates me. And you're giving people an alternative.
And it's just amazing. We're talking about where you are right now, but let's just go back again. It's like, wow, going from, tell us going through this yourself, because having gone through this yourself and then guiding someone through the process, what a gift. So now you're going through the process. What can you share with us when somebody is in that mental state of needing to survive day to day?
Well, I think what you're speaking to is when you transcend something. So at the time, you can't anticipate how it's going to shape your life. And you can have that moment of panic. So I can remember going through that. And even though I knew I was making the right decision, my biggest concern was my daughter's father is a wonderful father. And I knew he was going to be an active participant in her life. And that meant I was going to spend half of her life without her. The idea of that was gut-wrenching. And even though I knew she was going to be safe and well cared for, I wasn't thinking about the potential benefits that could come from that. And I think that's the piece I would share with anyone that's going through this, is that like any struggle, we can get so consumed by the emotions that we feel that we have a hard time seeing the forest through the trees, and that you are going to get beyond it and things will improve. And I think empowered is the best word I would use. It empowered me to be independent, chart my own course, reevaluate my priorities. And I was fortunate that I was able to prioritize my daughter throughout this experience, and had a co-parent that, even though he can be challenging at times because we're two different individuals, which led to the divorce, that he has been a great opportunity for me to learn the skills that I am now teaching a lot of my own clients.
Yeah, and it empowered you. So going from maybe where your heart, mind, and spirit is not maybe in a good place to empowered, what did that look like?
So I think it shook everything up. So you get accustomed to a 2-income household, you have your routines. Having a 2-year-old toddler at that time, you're kind of getting acclimated to a new phase. And then before you know it, you're in another one. So we then had to obviously change our living situation and assess our finances and change the parenting plan. So I held on to the things that were concrete. I have a wonderful family. I have an incredible support system with my friends and colleagues, and I really immersed myself in my work. And I was able to have some flexibility so that the time I did have with my daughter was time with her. And I really made an effort to only work on those days that she was with her dad. And counseling and doing this forensic social work enabled me to do that. So I think all of those things help.
That's fantastic. And, the way you mentioned empowered, how you empowered yourself going from, all right, I got to get those bootstraps up, and take that step forward. It is a process of reinventing, because now you're trying to figure out, okay, the finances. Now you got to figure out the living expenses. Everything is reinvented. So when you're going through this process, at that time, did you know about setting intentions, or did you learn about setting intentions? I would love to hear how you set your intentions.
So I think that is something I learned in the process, and I'm glad that you put it that way. I would not have necessarily used that verbiage, but setting intentions. So like I said, it happened when I was 30. So I was kind of going through my own transition and really trying to embrace this new decade, and obviously being a mom and then starting a business. And so I think what I would say is that I really had to reevaluate who I was. So I am a people pleaser. I am what they would call a type 1 personality. I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram. I am a telltale type 1 with a strong 2 wing, meaning I'm a reformer. So I believe that you do what's right. and can have some perfectionistic tendencies. And then the 2 wing is kind of being that helper and putting others over self. So it was the first time in my life that I really paused and said, I am going to blast through what perfectionism has always meant. I'm going to redefine what family looks like. I grew up Catholic. I would identify as Christian now, and divorce is not something that is encouraged by any means. So I really had to reassess what I believed was going to bring me happiness and ultimately my daughter happiness and fulfillment in life and satisfaction in life. And those were not necessarily things that I spent a lot of time and put intention into. Before that, I just continued on my path. If somebody needed me, I helped them. If an opportunity presented itself, I took it. And I did what was right, quote unquote. And so this is the first time that I really paused and said, I need to make some changes. And I made a lot of them.
Yes, because the first question that, you said you asked yourself was, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And, we have a lot in common because I was 35 when my world came tumbling down and I had to come to terms with, okay, what do I do now kind of thing, and pretty much reinventing myself. I love it. And then that question, who am I? So when did you discover that you get to choose?
Well, I think the divorce did it. So it was what came out of the fact that I normalized my own experience. I got to get a taste of what so many of my clients had experienced when they described feeling depressed or anxious. I am someone that had not really had my own experience with that prior to. I had family members that had struggled, and I had obviously had my own experience dealing with clients, but that was not my own personal experience. And I got a window into that world. And I think I could now say that I had an experience in my life that paralleled in a lot of ways what clients that I had were going through. So I really feel like it enriched my therapeutic work. And then I was able to really take it and transform it. So as devastating as many aspects of the divorce were, it opened up so many doors. And I now feel like I have developed this area of expertise, my ideal client, my niche. And I'm able to now teach other people how to do this work. I have some clinicians in my practice that have interest. And so they are open to observing some cases, and I'm able to teach. So the mediation course that I took, I actually teach the child-focused parenting plan portion. And so I'm really able to give personal examples and professional examples to help mediators in training do this work. And spread the word that it is a thing.
Yeah, I would love to spread the word to those that do American Sign Language, social workers, because it is so needed. It is definitely so needed. I loved what you said, that you were kind of normalized, that things became normalized. And when did you realize that you were programmed?
So I think I always knew to some extent, but this was the first time at 30 going through a divorce that I actually started to re-record over some of those old messages and just take a new inventory of all of these previously held notions and stories I had told myself based on past experience. And it's been a gradual process, and it continues today. But once you kind of see life a certain way, I have found that you can't unsee it. And so I have chosen to kind of keep this with me on a daily basis. And my daughter is a great reminder, the reason why in a lot of ways I do what I do. It gives meaning and purpose to all of it. And times when her father can be challenging or is maybe not parenting in a way that I can fully stand behind, we can have those conversations, he and I, or she and I can have those conversations. Let me tell you, she is one of the most emotionally intelligent 9-year-olds that I have ever met in my life. She
That's
has
nice.
the language. She is in tune with how she's feeling. She is very expressive. So that gives me hope that she can make decisions for herself and decide what is right for her, and that she doesn't have to own my feelings. I think that's the biggest experience that I learned from my upbringing and through my training, that children should not have to take on their parents' emotions. and they should know that they are entitled to their own, and it is okay for them to feel whatever they feel, and that their parents are going to be okay. Their parents are going to figure it out. They have things under control. If they don't, they're going to get it under control. So
yes, I think I was 11 when I realized I was growing up with my parents. So what's important is that you mentioned you kind of went back and you went through and kind of re-recorded, and you mentioned took an inventory and created a new inventory of these programs or beliefs and ideas. And you said you're still doing it. You know, I love the way you described it, because this is the work I do. I do integration. It's integration work. Tell me a little bit about this process of realizing, okay, this is not normal, that what is normalized, and I have to go through and go through this process. What did that look like for you?
Well, I think so much of it was sitting in a therapy session with someone else who was struggling in a relationship, or struggling with balance, or struggling with purpose. And for me to say, I have my own work to do. What kind of therapist would I be if I wasn't doing my own work? So I think that was also another push. And then I saw how it felt more authentic to not necessarily share my own experience, but people can sense when you're being real, when you can relate, when you're not just doing this because it's your job. And I noticed that shift a lot in sessions. And then I also saw what it was doing in my own personal life. The more I was being truly myself and speaking up and saying what I felt and doing it in a respectful way, but not suppressing all of that to please everyone else, I just saw how I flourished and the way other people responded to that, and it's like a ripple effect. And so then I also realized that even though I had made this choice, everyone that had loved me before still loved me, that I wasn't different in their eyes. I was almost richer and more relatable. And I think vulnerability breeds vulnerability. So when I started to share and open up that things weren't as perfect as they seemed on the outside in the relationship, because the majority of people in my life were shocked when we said we were divorcing, that really opened up those floodgates for the people in my life to feel like they could be more real with me.
Exactly. And, you know, I just love what you said. I write down little notes. It's like, oh God, I can't let that go by, because, you know, the more I'm true to myself, not to please others. Wow. I mean, when it's really sad that we have to wait until we're in our 30s, sometimes 40s, sometimes 50s to get this, but what a shift. And tell me about that shift in you.
Mm-hmm. So that shift in me, so it continues. It's a regular process, you know, it's a consistent thing. But I would say the shift in me has lightened the load. It has enabled me to see other people's true nature. So I almost feel like a wall has come down, where I am prioritizing and focusing on different things. And so it's affected relationships. I've been able to eliminate some people who brought some toxicity, who were not fully supportive of me, or who I just did not enjoy my time with them. And it didn't have to be this grand discussion or confrontation, but that I felt better saying no. And I regularly pause now. So for example, there was a recent business decision that I had to make. The universe presented this incredible opportunity, and I didn't have to. For the first time that in my career, I had stopped and said, how do I want my summer to be spent? It was an opportunity to expand the business, and we're going to do it, but we're going to do it in the fall. And it just worked out because I had done that pausing and saying, how do I want to spend my summer? Do I want to be hiring clinicians, completing credentialing applications for insurance companies, moving furniture up flights of stairs, or do I want to spend my summer with my daughter and focusing on my consulting business? And that's my passion. And if this space is still available in the fall, I will do it in the fall when she's back in school. And they were willing to accommodate me. There was actually more space available than I thought. I got it for the price that I wanted to. So I think it's incredible to me. I was afraid before that I would miss out or I would lose an opportunity that I would kick myself for. And in all reality, you just make way for more things that are in line with you and who you are and what you want. And now it's just going to continue. Like now that I've had that experience, I think it's going to be a snowball effect. Now I have more of that confidence because I've seen that my biggest fear did not become a reality. And it actually worked out in my favor and the practice's favor.
I love that. And you said, now I feel better saying no. And that's really the same as saying, now I feel better letting go. Because the more you hold on to something, the more it fights back, right?
So
The more
true.
resistance you give something, it's going to give resistance back. But, no. And then I have no idea what's coming, but whoa, wait a second, everything just worked out. I don't know how it happened. Yeah.
That phrase is key. Letting go. For someone like me, and I'm sure the majority of your listeners, we can all relate to it, but I think to certain degrees we resonate. That was the key. And letting go, like, what does that actually mean? I had to conquer my fears, so to speak, that the worst case scenario is not a guarantee. And like, it really comes back to self-efficacy. I think it really speaks to, are you capable of weathering the storm during the difficult times? Do you have what it takes to sit in suffering and know that it's temporary, to employ all the skills that you've learned, your support system, your coping skills, your hobbies, your whatever it is, that you're going to get through whatever comes your way and better at the end of it. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And I think that is the big difference. Learning to let go, trusting the process, and putting the skills into practice that I've been learning and teaching. Because if I was just saying it, it's lip service, and people can sense that.
Yeah, people are definitely picking up. Their BS meters are going full force. Yeah, I'm totally picking up on that. But I love what you said about self-efficacy. So self-efficacy for listeners, that really is self-awareness. Are you aware of your thought processes? How you think, well, I can't do that, and I don't have the money for that, and I don't, going down this kind of thought path, or, well, I'm supposed to go in this path. The money's going to come somehow. I have no idea, but how am I supposed to go in this path? I'm going to take one step forward, and just in faith, just take that step where you're being supported every time you walk. You're being supported each step of the way, even though the mind is going, no, this isn't the programming. This isn't the programming. Wrong programming.
Yes.
Can't compute. So
but I think it's believing that you have what it takes.
And that's all mindset and self-efficacy and self-awareness. So if you're in a position where you're just rock bottom, you got to start with the little things. It's like, okay, well, I had a shower today, or, okay, well, I ate today. So focus in on those little things and move forward from the state of mind, because you even talked about this. There was nothing outside of you that could help you. It was all an internal job.
Mm-hmm. And that's a harsh reality. But I think once you learn to embrace that, I mean, you have all you need. We're social beings. We're not meant to live in isolation. We need a tribe. But I think you mentioned it, it's that inner dialogue. We have this force within ourselves, whatever you want to call it, that is constantly feeding us messages. And we have more control over that than we realize. We can re-record over those tapes. We can tell ourselves new stories. We can challenge those distortions. And for me, I needed proof. So I needed to see in my own life how these changes played out, and that it was okay in the long run, because I have faith, but it gets stronger when there's evidence that supports it. And I think a lot of people need that tangible. So that was the turning point, really seeing how it manifested in my life.
Yes, getting those, okay, I'm having evidence of these things are now starting to appear, and all of a sudden I'm done with this degree, and all of a sudden I'm done with this training, and then next thing you know, you're in a spiral, pretty much surfing at the top, right? I know what that's like to get at the top of your career. And it was when I was at the top of my career that's when I was diagnosed with cancer. I was 35. So
Goodness.
yeah, very young. And it's been 21 years though since. So you have so much wonderful stuff ahead of you. It's fantastic. But when you were talking about the thought process and the mindset, from what I'm seeing, when I see the mind going, it's like, all right, well, there goes Denny. And I have character names for all so, I can see the movement of this, whereas before I was in it so much. And this is really a misuse. And as someone who does counseling, you may already know like hypnosis techniques and neurolinguistic programming kind of stuff. We know that this internal dialogue that we have, it really is a misuse of this powerful tool. So
you just said so many incredible things.
I know.
So two of the ones that stick out the most for me, you were talking about how you kind of accomplish one thing and then you move on to the next thing and you just keep going along the path and we keep our head down. And that was the awakening, right? It's like when you finally pick your head up and say, wait a minute here, I've been following this path, but is this the path I want to be on? And I think the other piece that really resonated was when you're talking about these voices and how you're able to almost take a step back, that you were in it, like in the thick of it. And the voices are just happening and going crazy in certain moments. But then having that ability to say, wait a minute here, they don't have to just continue to go on, indefinitely spewing all of this negativity, for example, that
no, she was integrated. So that's the work I do. I integrate her. Now she comes out when she's needed.
Wow.
And it's true, because it's like for the longest time I would suppress her and boom, there she goes. The moment I get angry, it's like, whoa, there she is. And then I got a mess to clean up later. But now it's like she's integrated and she has her place. She's no longer suppressed and she knows when to express.
I don't know if this resonates with you, and I don't know what you're into as far as shows, but it's making me think of why as a society are we so intrigued by shows like Ozark, Animal Kingdom, these families that live a life of crime and murder. I think we all internally have this ferocity in us, and we're all trying to tame it to certain degrees. And in all reality, we appreciate realness. And not that we could survive as a society if we all go around living like these characters in shows, but I think we relate. We see it and we say, I can't do that in my own life, but we can appreciate someone who is true to themselves and is not inhibited by all of the things that we as a society are. So that was exactly what I was thinking of.
All of those characters are archetypes within us that if the certain buttons are pressed, we are becoming that, right?
Yeah.
So they're just archetypes that appear and we get to decide, it's like, all right, well, I had to decide who I was going to be, after getting cancer and a whole bunch of things changing. And I realized that I had a lot of names. My full name is like Denise Marie Brown Van Fleet. It's like, well, I want something simple. So I just shortened it, Denny Van. And that just felt so light and so freeing because this big long name had so much with it. It's like, whew. So I love the reinvention part in it. And it's like, okay, I'm Wonder Woman now. So now I'm gonna just reach out to those who need help. And here's a hand. Let me just pull you up because, I might just need a hand someday too. And
yeah,
all of those archetypes are in us. And I feel like, you being here, the social worker and the work that you do is so important with what's happening within our society right now.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. And it's not easy, right? Because I think in a lot of ways, it can be very triggering to be in a room with two people that can't stand each other. And you're watching them struggle so much with their own emotions. And maybe they have not had those models or those resources or those tools. And now they're adults. And not to say that people can't change, but it's really hard as you've progressed in your life. And some of those traits have served you. And you're in a position where your guard's up because you're with someone that is triggering you and knows how to push all of your buttons. And so it's dynamic, it's fascinating, it's never dull, but it can be very difficult work. And it's extremely important to have a support system. So consultation groups and people that you could call and run a case by them. So that's been invaluable. And also building a team.
Building that team. Exactly. And, you know, it's easiest to hate those you love the most. And we don't see that when we're in it, that really what's being expressed is upside down love. You know, it's like, okay, you have needs that are not being expressed right now. Let's talk about that. And
well said. Well, a lot of times what I'll say to someone is, you made a choice to marry this person at one point. You both conceived a child together. You know, there was a period in your life where you were together, and I've gotten the impression pretty happy. So this one person across from you is not all good or all bad. And not many of them can tap into all of those wonderful qualities, but we try to focus on what are the things as a parent that you can maintain respect for, and that you can focus on some of the positive and some of the strengths. But it can feel like a effort and utility sometimes.
Exactly. And a lot of times they don't see the needs, and we don't know how to express our needs. Rather, we project. So it's really a set of my partner and I, we've been married 37 years. We just celebrated. Oh. So it's really sad to see that people really miss out on a deepening relationship. And I think it affects our relationships all around, because our children aren't able to model, you know, relationship.
Yes. Well, kudos to you. I was just having a discussion with my fiance the other day about how I feel like this work in some ways has jaded me. So with my own upbringing, with two parents who I was always living in fear that they were going to get divorced. They're still together, but unhappy, and starting the divorce process now. And I think all of these, either couples that come to the process too late and despite our best efforts and couples counseling decide to end their relationship, or these couples that are divorcing or, you know, struggling post-separation, I realized that the narrative I was telling myself is that long-term, committed, fulfilling relationship, I couldn't identify anyone in my life that had one. So I need to hear from more people like you that can kind of squash that down. And it is possible. And my fiance is teaching me that.
But it is work. It's a constant, you know how you're constantly reworking on yourself and reinventing yourself? You have to keep committing and reinventing your relationship. So right now we're empty nesters. Both our sons are, you know, old enough to go, and we have these house, and we're like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? So that's kind of where we're at right now. But, you know, I have to schedule time for each other. You have to, and you have to, just like a plant or a garden, you have to tend to it, pull out the weeds, you know, and take care of this living, ever-changing thing. And people is like, okay, well, I'm married. What are you going to do for me? Instant gratification. You're not doing it like this. You're doing it wrong, kind of thing.
But I also think the point you made before about needs, so in addition to everything you said that was beautiful, is the fact that I think sometimes we expect that another person is going to meet all of those. And as much as that person can enhance your life and meet some of those needs, we have a responsibility within ourselves to do that work as well. And so I think this entire journey that we've been talking about is a piece of that. And so I think that's another component that promotes longevity.
For sure. And the constant need to connect. And so we found over the 37 years, actually longer, but we found what it was that connected us is music. So no matter where we were in our life, right from the beginning to now, music has what connected us. So it's been, I feel very fortunate, but at the same time, I'm very glad there are people like you out there. So I want to thank you so much. Would you have anything you would like to share with our guests, with our listeners?
I appreciate the fact that they did listen, and clearly if they are following you, then they are on their own journeys, and I'm happy that they have someone to support them in that and the ways that you do. I guess the biggest thing is the highlights, you know, that forensic social work is a thing, that you don't have to suffer in silence or in isolation. If you are going through a transition in your relationship and divorce is on the horizon, that you can survive that and that you can seek out help. There are people that can help you navigate that. And it doesn't have to be just strict litigation, one attorney versus the other attorney battling it out in court. There are so many more collaborative ways to work together and come to agreements on your own so that you can minimize the impact of that divorce on your children and your families. And hopefully, in terms of relationships, I mean, there was a period in my life where I was considering, do I still believe in marriage? And I think what it's done for me is strengthened what I believe. I now know what marriage should not be. And it's really painted a picture very vividly in my mind of what marriage means to me. And I still believe very strongly in it. So
fantastic. Thank you so much, Julia, for being on this journey with us. So we are going to have Julia's information on how to get a hold of her. Please do check out her Facebook. You have LinkedIn and Facebook. Excellent. And so we'll have those in the description. And we do have the voice message capability. So don't forget, if you'd like to leave her a voice message, you can do that as well. And so I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you loved, and I want to hear what you would love more of. And in the meantime, keep being amazing.